Hi, and welcome to another instructional video for CSCI 1300. In this video, we will cover the use of strings and characters and their inputs and outputs to the user in various forms. Many programs process text instead of numbers. Text consists of characters, letters, numbers, punctuation, spaces, pretty much anything that is on your keyboard is a character. A string is a sequence of characters, or in some ways you could say it is an array of characters. For example, the string Harry for a name is a sequence of 5 characters, starting from H going to Y. One thing to note is that within strings and within all of C++, all numbering is starting at 0. So if we look at the string Harry, and we were to count the letters, instead of starting from 1 through 5, we would actually count from 0 through 4, with H being at the position of 0 and Y being at the position of 4. We will talk about this more as you go into the semester. For right now, let's try defining a string variable. Let's call it a name, and let's say that it is Harry. Whatever is in the quotation marks is the string that we are defining. The string type is a part of the C++ standard. To use it, you will have to include a header file. So I will type include string to add the string library, and this will allow me to use string name throughout my program. We distinguish between string variables and string literals based on what is stored in a string variable. A string literal denotes a particular string, just like a number literal, such as 2 denotes a particular number. Unlike number variables, string variables are guaranteed to be initialized even if you do not supply an initial value. By default, a string variable is set to an empty string, a string containing no characters. An empty string literal is written as the following. If we call it temp and we set it to nothing, you will notice that there is no content to the string. It is an empty string. Or instead of temp, we could call this response, and it would be the same thing. Both would have no values, but would still be declared as a string ready for some input to be put into them. Say we have 2 strings, such as Harry and Morgan. Let's change this to an F name, and let's change this to last name for Morgan. And if we wanted to combine these together, we could do so with the following. So say we take name and say that F name plus L name is equal to string name. So what we're doing here is we're saying that we are going to take Harry and add it to Morgan, or vice versa, and store them together as one new string in the variable name. So if we were to print this to the screen, what we would get is the following. Notice that Harry Morgan has been concatenated together. We have taken 2 strings and smashed them together, and in some cases this can not look very good. So if we wanted to actually make it look presentable like a regular name, we need to add a space in between, and a space is just a character within a string literal. So we can take a string literal and add 1 space and add it just like we added F name and last name together by just stringing the strings together. And you can see here that we now have Harry with a space and then Morgan in name, the variable that we have declared for all of them to be put into and stored. We'll now move on to how to read a string from the console. To read a string from the console, we first have to ask the user for some information. I'm then going to declare a new name, and I'm going to use the cn operation on new name. And then I'm going to print your name is, and then I'm going to print the new name. So if I run again, actually I'm going to comment out the first part. So we'll only deal with our new inputs. So let's recompile and save. And please enter your name. Your name is Kristen. Let's try this with multiple words. So this is something to note. With the cn operation, we can only gather one piece of information up to a space or a new line character. So in order to generate multiple words in one string when we gather it from user, we're going to have to replace line 14 with something else called a getLine operation. GetLine is a function that requires two variables. One is what is going to be bringing the information in, which is the cn operation that we just tried. And we also want to specify where we're going to store this information, which will be in the new name variable we've declared above. So getLine takes in a incoming, where is this coming from, is the first variable. And the second one is where is it getting stored. So we're going to getLine the name, and then we're going to pass it back to the user in the same fashion. And once we do this, we should be able to gather the entire name, and we do. GetLine works in this way, and it can take as much information as you throw at it. It's very useful, and it's good for multiple words or data that's separated by commas or other things like that. If you're looking to store anything in the string beyond a single word, a getLine is the best way to grab that information from the user when prompted. Okay, let's move on to some string-based functions. So in C++, the string library that you included when you say #include_string allows us to use and call on functions that other people have written to give us functionality that we don't normally have, that would be harder to get without these built-in functions. For instance, say we were to, actually let's keep this information and we're going to reuse it. So say we have this name and we create some number to store the number of characters. So let's call it num_chars. And the num_characters variable will be the number of characters within the name given. So when we have this new variable, new name, which is what we're going to be getting the characters from. So we're counting the number of characters in the new name variable. And in order to do this, we need to perform a function call on the variable new name. We're going to add a dot, a period, and then type length with parentheses, because length is a function call. And we are going to be using this function call on the new name variable. The dot notation is how we actually call the length function on the name variable. And these functions are called member functions. We say that the member function length is invoked on the variable name when used. Once you have a string, you can extract substrings by using the substring function as well. So let's show what happens with dot length, and then we'll go through the other function that I want to cover, which is the substring function, which is also extremely useful when parsing information. So what we're going to do is we're going to print your name is, we can actually reuse this piece of code from above. So I'm going to take this piece of code here, uncomment it, and I'm going to bring it down. And then what we're going to do is say the total number of characters in name is, and then we will print the number of characters stored in numchars. Okay, let's try saving this and recompiling. All right, and my name is as follows, and there are 15 characters within my name, including the space. So 14 characters minus the space. Okay, so now that we have done that, let's work on the substring function, which is also extremely useful. The dot length and the substring function are both very common when dealing with strings and help perform many, many different operations much easier without more intensive computation. So take hello world. Say we have a greeting. Let's set a string greeting equal to hello world. And we're going to create a substring variable called sub, which will be a portion of the greeting itself. So imagine that we're splicing off a portion of greeting, which contains hello world, and storing it in a different variable without changing greeting itself. So it's basically extracting a piece from the original string. And just like before with the dot length function, we're going to be using it on the variable that we want it to be operated on. In this case, we want it to operate on greeting. We'll have to use a dot in order to call the function. And we will then say sub str, parentheses, because it is a function. And this function, the substring function, requires two inputs. The first one being the first position, like I was talking about before. Everything in C++ and in programming usually starts with a position of 0. So if I wanted to grab the word hello, the first position would be 0. Hello has 6 characters, so I want to go to the 5th location because we start one less. We start at 0, so we're going from 0 to 5. That's 6 position characters. And if we now print this out, cout greeting, and then we're going to cout substring is, and we're going to print whatever comes back from the sub variable. Okay, let's try running that now. And you can see here that we had hello world coming from greeting, and the substring that we collected was the word hello from hello world. If we wanted to change this to be the word world, we could say, okay, where does world start? 0, 1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it starts on the 7th position character. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So we want to go from 7 to, and we're going to start at position 7, and we're going to go the same number of character spaces. So we want to go 5, 7 to 12. That's 5 character spaces. So world is the same length as hello, so that should work. And Let's try this again. And you can see that we got the word world. If we change this to 6 characters, you'd see that we would get the exclamation point as well. And so this is very manipulable. You can change it at will to gather what you want from the string. And notice that greeting is not being changed. We are only grabbing a portion of the original string and creating a second string, which is a slice of the original. Well, that's all that I'm going to show you in this video for working with strings and string built-in functions. Thanks for watching, and happy coding!